Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CIO Leadership Forum, CIO Trends and Properties. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Amanda Blevins, Chief Technology Officer for the Americas, BMC. We're super excited to have Amanda with us for a thought leadership presentation titled Proven Technology Imperatives for the Modern Business. Welcome, Amanda. Over to you.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks for that great introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today. So a little different. I love to take questions and have conversation throughout the presentation. So anything you put in Q&A, I'll try to answer as close to real time as possible. All right, let's jump into it. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with BMC, and maybe not the new BMCs we'll be talking about in our conference in a month, we focus on building the most important platform there is, the most important technology platform there is, and that's your platform. And so that means that we need to make sure that we align to what your initiatives, what your priorities are, and how you're going to solve them, how you're going to enable your business with technology, because that's why we're all in IT, to make business successful. And if we look at the world today, there's basically two main priorities. The first one is what's going on with Gen AI? It's been 2 years, and how are we making money from it in business? And the other is almost contradictory to the first priority, which is cost cutting. There's many executives, hundreds of executives that I've spoken with over the last couple of years, and everyone has that question of how do we make Gen AI, something that generates profit, that reduces costs for our business, but also it's a very expensive investment. And then the other side is, we have to reduce costs. There's lots of, reduction in force going on in the industry, lots of budgets being cut. So we need to do more with less, which has always been true in IT from the time that I can remember, but is even more true with what's going on in the world today. So I'm going to talk about the best practices to be able to achieve both of these things, and also how the BMC portfolio can help you make that happen. Another thing that I'd like to maybe bring to your attention is because of all this focus has been on Gen AI for the last 2 years, you might notice that a lot of technology companies have spent a lot of time and a lot of their own money and investment, in that, especially things like hyperscalers. And you probably have some sort of strategy to leverage the public cloud. And it maybe depends on what stage that you're at, but it also means that maybe you haven't seen as much development. Or you haven't seen as many features and capabilities from various, software and technology companies that don't have to do with Gen AI. So I want to make sure that you all see both sides of BMC and how we approach things. Now, if we think of, cloud characteristics, since I'm taking a guess here that almost all of you have these cloud projects still. If we look at the cloud characteristics, according to NIST, if you have self-service, broad network access, rapid elasticity, resource pooling, and metering, you have a cloud environment. So that means that if you go to AWS, you have a portal, you can have self-service. They have built out broad network access across their geographical data centers. They have rapid elasticity so they can handle your workload requests. They do resource pooling so they can use their technology in the most optimal way possible. And of course, there's metering. So one, everything performs well, but also so they can send you a bill. But if you think about these characteristics and then you look at, great, I'm not 100% in AWS. Maybe I have Azure, maybe I have GCP, maybe I have Oracle, Alibaba, or some other sovereign cloud provider. when you think about it, you now have new silos, right? Now you have the on-prem private cloud silo. You might have the edge operational silo. You might have the AWS silo. And we've been trying for decades to get away from these silos in IT, and now we've just built more of them. And so I want to go over what best practices are for a multi-cloud strategy and operations and all the things that you want to think of at a very high level. I bet a lot of you have pieces and parts of this, especially in larger organizations. Sometimes some BUs do it more than others. But really the goal is that you have a centralized IT services for all of your BUs. And so what you want to build out at the bottom when it comes to infrastructure and cloud services is your cloud and mainframe platform. Now there's many that you're going to use. I put some technologies here down at the bottom. You might have others in your environment. But the idea is that you want to have a set of cloud architects, cloud engineers, your site reliability engineers, build out a single platform where your end users, where your application owners, your DevSecOps teams, your platform engineers go for the access to services that they need to build out your technology platforms. So you want one single solution that it automates, that does self-service across all of these platforms. You don't want to use them individually. You want to be able to have that cost transparency to be able to understand what's the best platform for me to be able to run my workloads in based on many, many vectors, but including cost. We want to make sure our applications perform well. So we have observability and monitoring that we need to feed up into a centralized platform. And of course, do performance capacity management because we want to keep those costs down. So we always need to right size our environments, whether it's private cloud, the edge, public cloud, or mainframes. Now, once you have that bottom layer of those central services in place, now that's available for folks to access through GUI or through an API. And the next thing that you want to build is with your platform engineering team. You want to be able to have your CI/CD pipelines. You want to be able to do data automation. You want to understand how successful your product teams are and your platform teams are in relation to the business. And so you might think, well, where are my developers? So sometimes when I talk to folks, they have developers doing infrastructure things. My background is an infrastructure person. I spent a lot of time in servers and storage and virtualization and cloud and maybe a little bit of networking, enough to be dangerous and enough, for security. But I'm a subject matter expert in those areas. I, don't have subject matter expertise as a developer. I should not be out there, coding these production solutions. However, it's the opposite is true. If somebody has been a developer their entire career, they are not subject matter experts in infrastructure and cloud services and things like that. So we want to prevent them from making these, using these services directly, being responsible for configuring them, being responsible for securing them. One, that's just not their area of expertise. And two, developers should be doing one thing. They should be writing code and seeing it run in production. And they need, their IDE of choice for that. With the Gen AI work that has happened in the world, we need to be able to provide them code assist capabilities to increase their productivity. There has been some studies and numbers out there that show that there is developer productivity increase with Gen AI code assist solutions as long as they are senior enough to understand what that LLM is giving back to them. So we want to make sure that those developers, when they write their code and they check it in, their CI/CD pipelines pick it up. The CI/CD pipelines then call down to that bottom layer for your cloud and mainframe platforms and trigger the automation necessary to be able to deploy the right virtual machines or containers or public cloud services that you want to be able to use. Once all that infrastructure is deployed, then the CI/CD pipelines kick off deployment of the code that was just written, whether this is a new feature or a bug fix or even a new product. So the CI/CD pipelines are responsible for getting that code that was checked in out into test, for going through all of the test procedures and then automatically decommissioning that environment, giving the information back to the developer so they can determine what they need to fix or if they need to go through the process to release it to production. So this is a great example and great practice that I've seen work across all industries. And really, when you centralize your IT services and you take it out of the hands of developers and you take it out of the hands of the BUs and provide one platform, this is really how you can reduce costs because you'll get rid of the redundancy in your environment. And one thing that I mentioned is, we can also help you, we need to think about how AI and ML plays into your strategy while we're cutting costs. So the more we can simplify the environment, more we can optimize more that we can track our costs and understand how it aligns to our revenue generating platforms and understand where our investment should go, the better. But we also still need to innovate. And so when we have this type of platform, not only can we innovate with moving our cloud strategy forward, having next gen applications, but we can also innovate by pulling all of our data into the right place. And that's where the data automation and data engineers come in, to be able to have that data either for fine tuning large language models or for using RAG, retrieval augmentation for those large language models, because Gen AI and large language models only provide you value when they're fine-tuned or you use RAG to be able to make them domain-specific to what you do, right? The generalized models are great for having that foundation to be able to interact, but you need to be able to have your domain-specific information. That's why data automation is so important. And these days, it should also be linked to the CI/CD process when you're deploying new applications, because some of those applications are AI/ML. Security, of course, you might notice on that previous slide, NIST did not mention security in those cloud characteristics. I believe it's just because it's implied. We all know how important security is. So it needs to happen across all of these different environments. And that's why it's so important to make sure that your subject matter experts, or those that need to become the subject matter experts like cloud architects and site reliability engineers, are working hand in hand with your security team to make sure that in their CI/CD pipeline, security is accounted for. Now, this is all great, for the folks that, are in IT or are developers, are in platform engineering and security. This is a fantastic way of working, because now I have APIs, I have GUIs to be able to access what I need directly while governance and standards are being set by the other teams. Now, we have to think about all the other folks in your organization that might not be in technology. They also need a great digital experience. So that's what's represented on the left-hand side. Now, this might be employees where it's, IT service management or enterprise service management, or maybe my laptop is broken or facilities needs to do something, or there's an HR workflow. It might also be your customers and partners. We have a lot of folks in a telco space, for example, that if their internet connection goes down, their customers and partners need to be able to report that, so the telco can take, the proper corrective action, and they need to workflow that out. But also what I want to call out is it's no longer just humans that need this connectivity to this digital experience. We also need to support AI assistants. So folks that spend all their time in Copilot or with Gemini or other technologies, they're going to have their AI assistants go out and do some of this work too. Or maybe you already have some AI assistants that you need to integrate to your workflow. Now, this is great for me to talk about and to tell you all, the best practices that I've seen to make organizations successful. But let me also show you how we at BMC can help you. Now, I've basically taken the same layout and I've overlaid the BMC high-level solutions or product families that will assist you. So I'm going to go over a lot of information still and make sure that you all understand where our solutions fit. So BMC, at the very bottom, we'll start with our IT service management and our AI ops solutions, also known as Helix. And Helix is our platform where we've modernized our products. We've built them to be microservices and containers, and that gives us the ability to be able to provide them to you as a SaaS solution or for you to be able to deploy on-prem. I have seen numbers that a lot of organizations are repatriating workloads from public cloud back to on-prem. This is generally because of data and access to data and, of course, cost of the public cloud solutions. And so some organizations, especially in regulated industries, Department of Defense, things like that, there is an on-prem requirement. So that's why we give you all optionality and choice as to how you use our solutions. Ones that are our SaaS solutions are also available for you to run on-prem. Within the security of your own data centers and locations. And so our portfolio contains all of these things. We have automation capabilities. We have observability. With our AI ops portfolio, we have the ability to take in all the metrics from all of your tools across all of these multi-cloud platforms and be able to determine best practice for remediation of issues, to be able to see proactively what might go wrong, and you can interact with these directly or through your AI assistants. We have solutions around cost transparency and performance capacity management, and it's not just for the x86 world for modern cloud services and containers. In our AMI portfolio, our automated mainframe intelligence platform, we also have these same capabilities for mainframe. And so we don't keep them separate when we want to implement them in your environment, because we want to have a single platform for everything. And so this way we're able to take all of our mainframe metrics, observability, AI ops, and integrate it with the rest of your environment. So you have an entire end-to-end view of what's happening in your real estate and your technology platforms. And we're able to head off problems maybe before they occur, or provide quick remediation if they do, and also provide complete cost analysis for all of your applications, because you want to be able to invest the time, your innovation, and your engineering hours into the applications that make your organization the most money, or most critical to your mission. Moving up a layer to the CI/CD pipelines, data automation, success insights, we have an entire suite for development on the mainframe platform. And some of the capabilities are beyond even what I've seen on the x86 side of the world. And we contain things that do success insights to see how you're aligning to your business KPIs based on what your developers are modernizing on your mainframe. And so in the AMI portfolio, not only is it operational tools and best practices and cost transparency, performance capacity management, and automation, but we also have solutions to be able to have those CI/CD pipelines for your mainframe, as well as the IDE and code assist capabilities for those developers. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of folks that know COBOL these days. So one, we need to be able to help the new folks coming in the workforce, or those that want to transition from what they do today to mainframes, to be able to understand COBOL. And so with this complete portfolio, we also include a best-in-class solution called Control-M. And Control-M, again, is a multi-cloud platform, just like all of these are. And Control-M can do data automation. It can do workflow automation. It was originally for batch jobs on the mainframe, so you might hear us say jobs. But all of this is automation and orchestration. And so Control-M plays a part of these CI/CD pipelines to be able to move data around, to create these data automation or data pipelines. And so it's an integral part of how you want to do things, because you don't want to choose, back to those silos. You don't want to say, well, I'm going to do my data automation, data engineering with one solution on AWS and one solution on-prem and one in Azure and one at the edge and one on the mainframe. Now you want to have a single solution, and that's what our portfolio focuses on, is being able to work with all of these technology platforms at once. And if you already have an automation solution, if you already have a self-service platform, we're an and company. Our solutions complement what you already have that you've implemented as best practices. And, to be able to remove some of the costs in your environment, while solutions do that too, it's also smart to be able to rationalize your technology landscape. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a lot of capabilities in the AMI portfolio. One that's very important still today is ransomware. So in the AMI portfolio, we have the ability to back up your mainframe data to an environment of your choosing. It could be public cloud. It could be, some type of storage that you have on-prem. But this way, we're able to, one, again, save money, to move away from using mainframe CPU cycles to be able to do this, mainframe storage to be able to do this. And now you also have a mutable copy of your backups in case, you have to deal with a ransomware event. I also include enterprise service management, because the first step to preventing security issues is to make sure that you are physically secure as well. So if you're doing facilities management through your enterprise service management, this is something that needs to tie into all of your security processes. And on the left-hand side, the BMC solutions also fall under Helix for that digital experience, whether it is your internal service desk, whether it's an external service desk, whether you do only IT service management or you expand to enterprise service management. So I know this was a ton of information in a very short time. Feel free to ask questions, and I'd love to answer them real time. Now, when I prepared for this with the Argyle folks, one of the questions that I asked is, what do folks really appreciate out of these presentations? And they said, well, a specific action. So I want to be able to show you the best way to do some sort of public cloud migration or utilization of public cloud services, or even a repatriation if that's what you're working on in your organization. Now, I've been doing multi-cloud for a long time. So these are 5 key steps in your organization to do any type of multi-cloud work, any type of repatriation, even a divestiture for your organization. The first thing that you must do is map all system relationships and dependencies. And one component of the BMC Helix portfolio is discovery. Now, this is best in class. There is no other solution out there that can map your IT assets and create these dynamic service models better than what Helix Discovery does. So whether you use BMC for your CMDB and other, IT service management, we work with everything. Again, we're an and company. So whether it's how your mainframe and applications are built and mapped out there across your mainframe environment, across your x86 or modern environment of virtual machines and containers and public cloud services, we support this all. So we can give you an entire map of your environment. And this is very important because, obviously for support purposes and operational purposes, that's important. But if you're going to do any type of data center consolidation, public cloud migration, etc., you must know what you have. If you try to move something and you didn't know it talked to something else, well, then it's not going to go very well. So that's the first step. Map out your entire environment, get it loaded into your CMDB, use Discovery itself to do the business service mapping and everything else. Because knowing which applications are your highest revenue are part of the highest revenue generating services for your business is also key. Because again, you might want to focus more resources there. You might want to do more innovation there. And the second step is not about technology. It's about a strategy for your organization. So there's three main ways that organizations go around moving to public cloud. One is lift and shift. And lift and shift essentially means I've done absolutely nothing to the workload and I'm taking it from one location to another. This is the absolute fastest and probably least expensive way to leverage public cloud. So if you're trying to do data center evacuation, or you just already have an agreement with a hyperscaler in place, you want to be able to meet that spend, lift and shift would be the way to go. So if you have Nutanix in both locations, if you have VMware in both locations, or if you already have container-based applications and you can use Kubernetes everywhere, that's lift and shift. Zero change to your workload. The second way that you can move to public cloud is by replatforming. And this is not refactoring. That's the next one where you modernize the application. Replatforming literally means I'm running VMware virtual machine, Nutanix virtual machine, KVM virtual machine on-prem, and I'm moving to Azure, and I'm going to reinstall the application directly on Azure. And so when you do that, there's very little business value to that. It's going to take a long time. On average, it's about 9 months to re-platform from like a one virtual machine format to another. I'm going to answer this question here. Would you agree that not all workload tasks are suited for cloud? How do you argue the case for an on-prem solution, those that only see cloud in the future? Absolutely. I would say that all technology platforms are not appropriate for all workloads. That's why we still have mainframes, right? For those billions of transactions that we do around the globe a day, for all the healthcare that we have, for transportation services, mainframes are still best in class for those types of workloads. Now, when I talk about cloud, I talk about the characteristics of cloud because I want to be clear that you can build out a cloud experience on-prem as long as you have self-service, broad network access, rapid elasticity, resource pooling, and metering. And you should also have that same capabilities at the edge and bring in the mainframe where you can. So I know that this question is specific to, when should I use public cloud? And so public cloud is great in industries where you have regulations that require you to have redundant solutions. So especially in financial services, it is required that you are able to run your workloads on multiple clouds. That's one of the few industries where you need to have something like that. So I think it's a good use case there. Public cloud is also good for being geographically located close to your end users. So if you only have data centers built in the US, but you have users in Asia or Europe, you can leverage some type of cloud environment to be able to deploy your workloads there. I think public cloud is also useful for testing out new technologies that would take a long time for you to build out on-prem. Right when Azure started the partnership with OpenAI a year and a half ago, that's how a lot of companies started, practicing with LLMs. It doesn't mean that they're going to deploy it there. So when I talk about what on-prem solutions should we have, one, I talk about data. I talk about data, the legal requirements, the privacy requirements, the regulatory requirements. I also talk about cost. If you do on-prem private cloud properly, it will always be far less expensive than leveraging public cloud services. What's also tricky about public cloud is, technologists like myself went out 10, 15 years ago, like, oh, this is really cool. Look at this technology. Look at this technology. And we just played around. All of a sudden, now there's a big mess for your company in public cloud because you didn't have the standards in place before they started doing that with applications. So if you don't have your strategy in place and how you're going to use public cloud and multi-cloud operations, I would stay away from public cloud as much as you can until you put that in place, because on-prem is hard enough. One public cloud provider makes it way more difficult. And the more you add, the more exponentially difficult it gets. So I would look at cost. I would look at workload requirements. I would look at customer requirements. I would look at the laws of physics. And I would determine also operationally, what can my people do? What can my folks do? If they can run a data center like nobody's business and build out private cloud and have all those on-demand capabilities and self-service capabilities, I would have them do that. If I don't have the operational folks, I don't have the architects because of different ways that my company has went with my IT organization, then maybe I would look at public cloud for that. So again, specific services for public cloud, but always look at your regulatory and legal requirements. And if you need to do, just because I can, should I? The next question, how can organizations ensure seamless integration, interoperability when managing data and applications across multiple cloud environments? That's really hard. If organizations did it perfectly, then we wouldn't be having this session, right? So I think that it's important to figure out what your use cases are. Why do I have these applications? Should my application be hybrid? Should it be a multi-cloud application where some of it runs on-prem, some of it runs in public cloud, runs at the edge? I need to determine that based on business value, business use cases, and then back into the technology requirements from there. Again, just because it's new and interesting, maybe it doesn't mean that I should, right? So make sure that you have this strategy of which workloads run where and why based on your business requirements before you determine how the applications themselves are architected, and therefore how you need to move your data around or how you need to be able to access your data to be able to have these traditional applications, modern applications, your AI ML applications. So it's definitely different for everyone. But you should always go back to what applications are most important for revenue for my company, or to complete the mission, if I'm in an agency. And then let me determine how complex they are. And if I do this work for years to modernize it, or I do this work for years to migrate it to a different location like a public cloud, what is the business value that I get out of it? Is it a velocity of development? Can I get that velocity of development and innovation still on-prem by changing my practices currently? So there's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself and be honest about your capability, your organization, but also the last 10 or so years of folks trying these cloud projects that have not gone the way that folks planned, regardless of how they approached it. What best practices do you recommend for businesses to break down data silos and create a unified data strategy across the organization? I think data silos are even more complex and more locked down than the IT functionality silos and the cloud silos. This has been a problem that folks has been trying to solve for decades, right? First we had data lakes. Then there was data lakes and data this and data that. Now we have moved to data clouds and to services where you can have a database on demand, a self-service solution, ideally a multi-cloud solution. To be able to get it there is great. Again, you can use Control M, like I said here, to be able to orchestrate those application data across all of these different platforms, regardless of what type of database, regardless of where it lives. But this again goes back to that business value. Moving data around can be expensive, especially if you pay ingress or egress costs in a public cloud. It can be expensive from the standpoint of CPU cycles on a mainframe. So you want to go back to what am I trying to achieve? And what data do I need to have access to that? Because you're not going to be able to break down all the silos at one time. But I generally advise to find friendlies, is how I refer to them, the application owners, the business owners, the data folks that want to innovate and want to do something differently with IT, and start with them first and say, not only are you going to be a collaborator on this solution, but also your data, your application is critical to the company. We want to be able to move forward. I do want to be clear that I'm not saying tackle the most complex problem first. Always start with some low-hanging fruit and prove out your technology, improve your operational practices. But when you go after innovation and these big investments in your projects, make sure they align with how you're going to, what systems generate revenue for the company. Are there any specific U.S. legal requirements to move to public cloud in other countries? It depends also on if the organization that you work for has users or customers in other countries. So if you're a U.S.-based company but you have customers in Europe, for example, then you must meet GDPR, you must meet DORA, and all these different things. So it's not so much around move to public cloud in other countries. It's more about when I have end users, when I have customers, when I have partners that I'm working with in these other countries, I need to know those laws, those compliance requirements, those regulatory things, and then be able to architect and solution for it across my entire portfolio. And I do highly recommend that even if you don't today, it might be a good idea to just build your solutions for that, because in the future you might acquire a company that is in a different country that will require adherence to those regulatory requirements. So it's always smart to design and architect your environment and implement solutions that can meet all those requirements, even if you don't have to right this moment, based on the organization that you work for. So I know I've gone a little bit over time. Thank you so much, everyone, for being engaged. And back to you, Nick.
And thank you again, Amanda, for such an incredible thought leadership. And, I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 2:40 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled Advancing Workforce Productivity with Generative AI. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.